Beauty in Nature by Arti Chopra. There's a poem in every flower, a sonnet in every tree, a tale in every lifetime. It's just for you to see. There's a lyric in every brook as it rushes over rocks. There's an ode in every nuance as love's wonder unlocks. There's rhythm in every sound, every beating of a heart. There's poetry in every union, every couple who are apart. And just as there is wonder in every new life created, there is sadness and regret for the unsaid and unfettered. Just listen for the music that your ears cannot hear. Just strain yourself for the melody that's so far and yet so near. The wonder of the Creator, the magic of the divine is there to feel for all of us. To soon be yours and mine. I am a bit curious this morning, curious to know how many of you have ever read Song of Songs in its entirety. Have ever been in a Bible study that explored, oh, great, one hand. Woo! If you have, good for you. If you choose to do so, congratulations. I think you'll find it's very different from most of the literature in our Holy Scriptures. You might even think it a bit racy, which could explain why you don't hear about many Bible studies on the book or hear many sermons rooted in its verses. On the surface, it portrays a conversation between two lovers. Professor Ali Utley says, it's as if we're in our favorite coffee shop overhearing the whispers of a couple 2 tables down. And as we listen in, we learn something about love and intimacy and desire and mutuality and longing and vulnerability and mystery. In Song of Songs, which is typically, as I said, attributed to Solomon, the love being expressed, however, is not just the filial love of family and friends, nor is it just the agape love giving selflessly, nor is it eros, that passionate, romantic love. You can read it that way, of course. But there's something deeper going on. And that's why it's not PG-13 at times, but a bit more, because it encompasses so many aspects of life and love. And that's why it was included in the Scriptures. It was included because there was a deep sense and belief that it was not just describing romantic human love, but using that as a metaphor to discuss the very nature of God's love for all of creation, for every creature, for every human being, for me and you. If you look up the types of love on Google, well, you might get confused. Because there's one person who says there's 3 kinds of love, and another person who says there's 4 kinds of love, and another person who says there are 5 kinds of love, and another who says 7, and another who says 8. I'm going with 8. The list of 8 includes philia, affectionate love, the love of friends, the reason the city of Philadelphia is called the city of brotherly love. There's pragma, P-R-A-G-M-A, or enduring love, the kind of love that never gives up. There's storge, or familiar love, a friend. There's eros, or romantic love, the kind of love that dots the pages of Song of Songs. There's ludus, or playful love, like when good friends are teasing one another or playing a little prank. There's mania, or obsessive love, and there's philautia, or self-love, and agape, which is selfless love, best exemplified in the life, death, and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. But collectively, all these forms of love and any others we might try to describe to one degree or another are describing the very nature of God's divine love. I've mentioned the 14th century mystic Julian of Norwich previously in this worship series, and I want to share one of the insights in her writing because I dare say she was quite familiar with Song of Songs. The language of the first line, "Look at you so beautiful, my dearest ones," would no doubt have brought a smile to Julian's lips and a twinkle to her eye, but she had her own ways of speaking about God's love for us and for all creatures. In portraying how God would speak to humanity, she would use the language "dear worthy" or "dear worthy soul." And that worthiness was not and is not due to our having earned it through some act on our part that then merits God's love and response. God is love. We were made from that love. We were made for that love. We are worthy of divine love as a fundamental part of who we are, how and why we were made. So no matter what happens in your life or what you do in your life, you're still always a dear worthy soul to the Creator who designed our innermost parts. Quite simply, we were and are made out of love, for the beloved to love. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing else. As we read in 1 John 4, verse 8, "Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is," say it, love. Love is the very nature and substance of God, and that love is not dependent on anything we do or do not do. It is part and parcel of our very nature that flows from the nature of God. We may lose sight of it at times. We may fail to live fully into it at times, but it is still part and parcel of who we are. As Marshall McPhee put it in a synopsis for today, the beauty in other beings exists completely for itself, not for any reason other than that the joy of existence is the purpose of life, not gaining more stuff, not seeing the market grow and inflate our retirement accounts. It's a completely non-utilitarian view. And when we accept this non-utilitarian goodness, we tune into the raw delight of the world. Beauty decenters our egos by helping us realize that life is its own justification. Life is enough. And as we let go of how everything relates to us and serves us and benefits us, we begin to appreciate all things for their own worth and beauty. And our desire for their flourishing intensifies. When we turn this idea onto our own selves, we can let go of the expectations of others and the societal standards of beauty in regard to our own worth. So no matter our appearance, no matter if we're dressed in rags or the finest clothing, God would still say to each and every living one of us, to every human being and every creature, "You're utterly beautiful, my dear worthy. There is not a single flaw in you." Wendy Farley writes, Julian of Norwich offers an extended discussion on the relationship between our sensuality and our substance. And I know what's running in some people's minds. We have a particular understanding of sensuality sometimes. But it's just about the fact that we live in a world where we have senses: sight, smell, sound, touch, taste. That is our lived experience in the world. It comes through our senses and our internal union with the Divine One. Holy wisdom wishes us to be aware that humanity's dear worthy soul was preciously knit to the Creator in the creation, and that the knot that binds us is both subtle and yet so powerful that it ones us into God. That we can feel pleasure in beauty is a good thing. All this beauty of a feather, breeze, or stream is not mere aesthetic. Its purpose or meaning is not subtly bound to our need. And in this difficult world, we need that kind of relief to gaze upon beauty and to know it doesn't need a why. We don't need to wonder about why it exists or why it looks the way it does, but simply take it in. We need the momentary ease of being in the presence of something that exists simply for itself. But the relief we feel in beauty is already opening us to something beyond ourselves at the same time. Beauty reminds us of a world that exists beyond our concerns, and this is the beginning, just the beginning of an awakening to beauty, not its end. The adventure of the Spirit is not only reprieve, it is awakening to the reality of others as existing for themselves in the integrity of their own being and communities of being. Creatures inhabiting different kingdoms like fungi and algae marry and become lichen. The roots of trees form an extended family of support, and perhaps, who knows, mutual affection in some tree form we will never know anything about. But we do know, science has shown that if there's a fire on the far side of a forest, the root systems begin to send that message to the other trees to warn of danger. There's not much they probably can do, but nevertheless, they're connected in community. We are all bound together in the great dance of existence, nothing apart and separate. We're all in the lineage of the stardust, billions of years old. We are aunts and uncles to whatever unimaginable life forms might dwell somewhere in a galaxy a billion years from now. The beauty of nature and of all beautiful things lets us experience the world without needing to ask why, but simply to take it in, to understand it has no reason other than itself, its own being. Let the heavens be glad and let the earth rejoice. Let the sea roar and all that fills it. Let the field exult and everything in it. Then the trees of the wood sing for joy, the writer of 1 Chronicles says. This joyfulness is not for something else. It is the very purpose of life. Tuning into the raw delight in the world is an opening unto the truth of our beingness, and into the being of brooks and blades of grass and patterns of clouds, the freshness of rain on a city street, the last dangling leaf hanging on, whose radiant red concentrates its entire existence before ultimately it lets go and falls to the ground. Yes, raw beauty can decenter our egos by helping us realize that life is its own justification and nothing more is necessary. And as our self-centeredness diminishes, the world appears in ever more intense colors and sounds and scents and movements and shapes and interactions and changes. There's nothing static in beauty. It is constantly changing moment by moment. Nothing is the same as itself, even for an instant. Moving through time and ever-changing relationships, beauty, God's beauty, is always in motion. And we can cling to nothing because there's nothing that lasts beyond the existence of that instant before it moves on to the next instant and then the next, taking forward its past and novel and zestful future. Awakening to this without a why of creation has no purpose other than itself. That is to recognize and participate in what is, not to attempt to change it, not to attempt to interpret it or care for it or adjust it, but just being fully awake spiritually and participating in the flow of what is and exists for itself. As Sugg says to Celia in The Color Purple, and I changed one word, God must be ticked off if we pass the color purple in a field without noticing it. Being alive to what is alive is the glory of the human, fully alive. This aspect of beauty is important because it emphasizes that other beings in their particularity and in their interconnections exist for themselves with their own inner life, their own desires and relationships. One could say, useless beauty frees us from the tyranny of self-centeredness and utilitarian greed, not absolutely, but in glimpses. We wake up to reality in its loveliness, fragility, conflicts, vitality, and realize this is the sacred and holy truth of everything that exists. It matters. Not because it matters to me or you, but because it shimmers with divine and sacred worth. Beloved, you are beautiful. Thanks be to God. Amen.